How do competing theories of child development further our understanding of the attachment process? The ethological work of Konrad Lorenz had an important influence on early ideas about attachment. In his famous experiment, he was able to show that goslings responded to what he described as a critical period in their development, when they would fix on a moving figure as an image of their mother or mate. He called this process imprinting. Bowlby adapted this idea to his theory of attachment. He outlined how this process worked in his 1958 monograph, The Nature of the Child's Tie to His Mother. He believed that the attachment behavior in a baby of 12 months is made up of a number of component instinctual responses which are at first relatively independent of each other. The instinctual responses mature at different times during the first year of life and develop at different rates. They serve the function of binding the child to the mother and contribute to the reciprocal dynamic of binding the mother to the child. He identified sucking, clinging and following, in all of which the baby is the principal active partner, and crying and smiling, in which his behavior serves to activate maternal behavior. Whereas sucking is closely related to food intake and crying may be so, the three remaining are non-oral in character and not directly related to food. In the normal course of development, they become integrated and focused on a single mother figure. As such, they form the basis of what Bowlby described as attachment behavior. Imprinting in animals was originally regarded as irreversible and unique, and would only develop during a very short period, and Bowlby applied this idea to his theory, predicting that if this was broken, dire consequences would befall the baby. But, according to Rutter, who Bowlby called his erstwhile critic, it is quite clear that this early view of imprinting is incorrect. Imprinting is neither irreversible nor fixed, and as far as children are concerned, they can develop more than one primary attachment figure and suffer no ill effects from deprivation, even at an early age. Rutter goes on to state, "There is no reason for thinking imprinting is fundamentally different from other forms of learning. The period of its acquisition is influenced by environmental circumstances and is not rigidly fixed." An alternative theory of child development, which may help explain how environmental circumstances contribute to an understanding of attachment, is behaviorism. The ardent behaviorist Skinner wrote that if humans were to be changed, even saved, then the environment itself must be changed and not the inner self. By adopting what Skinner called a schedule of reinforcement, the pigeon in the film can be taught to respond automatically, even when there is no immediate incentive. Attachment, according to this process, may be perceived as a human conditioned response to the need to be loved. The parent acts as a reinforcer, strengthening the desired response, which might include verbal praise or giving or feeling of increased accomplishment or satisfaction to the child. However, Skinner was a strict behaviorist and deemed responses such as thought, feeling and motivational factors as unobservable and had no time for such concepts.
If you now look at the actual history, we find that there are external reasons why this has happened. In other words, by discovering the causes of behavior, we can dispose of the imagined internal cause. We dispose of free will as an American divine of the 18th century, Jonathan Edwards, did. He said, we believe in free will because we know about our behavior, but not about its causes. And of course, it's the object of a science of behavior to discover causes. And once you have found those causes, there is less you need to attribute to an internal act or will, and eventually, I think, we need to attribute nothing to it.
A more conventional theory of learning, which may be seen in conjunction with behaviorism to provide a view of attachment, is cognitive development. Jean Piaget, born around the turn of the last century, identified 4 developmental stages to learning which children progress through. Firstly, the sensomotor stage, when the child, through physical interaction with his or her environment, builds a set of concepts about reality and how it works. Secondly, the pre-operational stage, in which the child is not yet able to conceptualize abstractly and needs concrete physical situations. Thirdly, concrete operations, when the child starts to conceptualize, creating logical structures that explain his or her physical experience. And lastly, the formal operations stage, when the child's cognitive structures are like those of an adult and include conceptual reasoning. As Rutter states, there is no reason for thinking imprinting is fundamentally different from other forms of learning, and what Bowlby identified as attachment behavior could just as easily be interpreted as a stage of cognitive development. Even so, the behaviorist point of view seems too scientific and cold by comparison, and the idea that children bond in the same way as they learn about, say for example, history or geography in school, appears unattractive. Therefore, despite any misgivings about Bowlby's picture of child development, it is his theory of attachment that continues to enthrall and beguile.